Welcome back to Beyond the Limits. I'm Mike Forsyth.
And I'm Mike Clark, and I'm delighted to announce that we've got Dr Sophie Newton, who's joining us tonight. We are discussing all things wellness. Welcome to the show, Sophie.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to join you.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. As Matt says, we're going to talk about wellness, and actually it's the 19th of January when we're recording this, so we thought it might be a nice idea to look at the wellness trends that might be popping up over the next year. So we've dusted off our tea leaves, we've shaken the magic 8-ball of wellness and come up with our predictions for wellness trends of 2026.
Yes, we've looked into some of the popular media outlets, and taking a look for the year ahead, we're going to try and dispel some of the myths, uncover some of the truths about popular wellness trends. And delighted to have you on, Sophie, because you are sharing with your Instagram handle and across social media platforms a wealth of content, and I've been really impressed with how much you've put out and how well informed it is. So delighted to have a credible take on the show today. So thanks for joining us. I would like to get us kicked off with the first one. And Sophie, I've asked you to lead on this, but this one really interests me. Out of all of these wellness trends, we're looking at something called adaptogenics and nootropics. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is really interesting, isn't it? I think most people probably aren't familiar with those terms, but probably people have heard of things like ashwagandha and maybe wonder, what is it? Does it work? Is it wellness? Woohoo or not? So basically, the term itself isn't a medical term, but it links actually with Ayurvedic medicine. And it is about plants or mushrooms or herbs that are said to help the body adapt to stress and improve resilience mostly. And then there's nootropics, which is more about kind of brain performance and focus and mood. And actually, like caffeine is a nootropic. So other nootropics people might have heard of like lion's mane or L-theanine. And along with ashwagandha, there's things like rhodiola and ginseng. So there's a lot in there. And the idea is that you could just have a little bit and you can just calm out your stress. You can chill out your cortisol and maybe affect some of your neurotransmitters, things like GABA that people might have heard of. But I would say I'm always a skeptical when it comes to this stuff. And when I looked into it, it's really interesting. So ashwagandha actually comes from the root, but it's basically like a chemical soup. And we don't quite know which part of it does what. So when we talk about whether or not it works, there is some interesting evidence that's kind of low quality that says it might affect kind of stress and depression and maybe increase like help with mood, sleep, things like that. But the evidence is always poor because it's really difficult, because how do you know which part? There's so many different parts that could be affected. So how much is the dose? Which exact compound was it that had that effect? So it's very difficult. And also, I was just going to rant now. I have a big issue with people always thinking that it is natural equals safe. So people think, oh, ashwagandha, that's going to be great for me. And it may help, it may not, but at least it's not harmful, as opposed to something like an antidepressant, which of course does have potential side effects, but we know what the dose is. We know what the risks are. We can keep an eye out. Whereas something like this, you don't know. And Ayurvedic drugs, a lot of the time they've been found to have things like heavy metals in, like lead, arsenic and mercury. And if you're taking that every day for months or possibly years on end, that could have like serious health repercussions. Ashwagandha also been linked to kind of liver disease. So I think part of this issue is that people think, oh, that sounds like a lovely, healthy, natural supplement. Maybe it'll help. I'll give it a whirl. But aren't actually thinking about the possible risks and downsides and interactions with other medications and things like that. So
I love this skepticism, Sophie. I think we're going to get on
skeptical.
Absolutely fine. Ashwagandha is an interesting one. I think, as you say, I did a reading about it, and actually there was some evidence that potentially showed some benefits. But it was interesting when you delve into it, a little bit of detail. It does remind me a little bit of St. John's wort. Listeners may be familiar with that. It's a medication that was traditionally used quite a lot, again, for kind of similar reasons, but actually interacts with a lot of other medication, can cause quite a lot of side effects. Ashwagandha has actually been banned in one of the Scandinavian countries because of the side effects. So I think that's a really good point. Natural doesn't always mean safe. And I think you'll know this as well, but as medical professionals, actually, patients don't necessarily think to say that they're taking a supplement or a plant-based medicine, and that can cause real issues once we're trying to look at health as a whole and actually tailor medications to an individual.
Yeah, because they think they bought it from Holland and Barrett or something. People think it's a health food shop. I have got my supplement from there, and it's a plant. It is natural, So and I get that. I really understand why that feels safe and natural and healthy, but it may not be.
Maybe I've just had my head in a bucket or something, but there seems to be a real proliferation in the supermarket shelves of these products. So against your kind of Pepsi, your Coca-Cola, you've now got drinks like Trip. And I looked in Sainsbury's the other day. There's all sorts of different types now claiming to be nootropic, adaptogenic, calming, heightening, relaxing. They've got these different flavors, different bright colors, but also different effects. And this is obviously this has captured the imagination of popular culture and how people are now seem to be more interested in maybe experimenting with some of the stuff that they perceive as being safe. That's brightly colored and presented nicely in a beautiful textured can. And I just find it interesting how this has become in vogue.
Yeah, I think it's all about, a lot of what we're talking about today is about idea of control and performance and optimization. So not only just about you were depressed, take this for your depression, but it's about could I be better? Could I, if I have this drink, will I be even more productive today? Will I be amazing in the gym? Will I sleep? It's just all about enhancement. And when I was looking at some of these drinks, there's a term that I came across that I liked is pixie dusting. Because a lot of the time they'll say things like, CBD, or they'll say protein. And actually, when you look at the ingredients, it's such a tiny amount that they just have the big wording on there so they can charge you a lot more money. And actually, it does obviously mostly very little. But even though I know that, I find myself going ooh, that looks nice. So tempting.
But I think but that's very natural, isn't it? And I think that's probably why these things are successful, because it's promising and I'm going to tap my sign that I always tap here, which is that it's promising a simple solution to what may be a complex problem in a nicely packaged, easily accessible thing. You're not going to have to book an appointment with your GP to talk about it. You can take it. It might be tasty or whatever. And I think that's the success of it, right?
Yeah.
I find the nootropics very interesting as well, as you're saying. But I think that again plays into that. You're right, that betterment, that maybe that's the effect of social media and everyone looking at this idea of a perfect life and wanting to have it and be cleverer and more beautiful and have a better tan. And maybe that plays into that feeling of actually, if I can take something that's going to make me sharper, make me cognitively better, then I'm going to do it. And it's an interesting one, I think. Going back to 2026, I read somewhere that the feeling was we were going to move from generic self-care to hyper-personalized longevity and performance, which I thought was quite a nice summary of what potentially we may see over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the truth is if you have a healthy diet and you exercise and you sleep well and you do all those things, one little drink is not really going to make any difference to what you're already doing. And if you're not doing all those things, one little drink isn't going to make any difference to what you're doing. So it's work on the foundation first. That's often harder work, isn't it? So yeah, it's looking for that easy win that realistically isn't going to make a difference.
I was thinking is we should score these out of 10. And I think 10 is super relevant, super important, and actually a kind of big wellness trend that we all need to pay attention to, whereas 0 is the other side of the scale. Mike, I want to hear yours first. Where do you put adaptogenics and nootropics in 2026?
I think they're bound to be popular. I think that in some cases, they're more reflective of someone trying to better themselves or make them feel better.
This is an incredibly wordy 0 out of 10.
I will get there. Realistically, the evidence I don't think is necessarily there. As Sophie, as you eloquently said, I don't think it's going to move the dial if you're not looking at the fundamentals. So for me, this is a 3 out of 10.
Okay. Christ, we got there. Okay. Sophie,
I'll be brief. I'll be more brief next time.
What do you think about nootropics and adaptogenics?
I think we're certainly going to I think we're going to see more and more of them, but whether or not I think they're actually going to make a difference to people's lives is a different matter. So we should certainly be aware of them. But yeah, I think 3 out of 10 too. Interesting science. Maybe things will progress. For now, I won't be taking them, really.
Okay.
Go on then, Matt. Can you do?
I'm going to go 4 out of 10. You've said everything I agree with, but I'm going to move us on. I want to talk about. We've got a lot to cover. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, so I want to move us on. The next wellness trend that I think is, in some ways, really exciting, but in some ways really depressing, is the idea and notion of social wellness spaces. Had either of you heard of these or this concept before, kind of preparing for this show?
Well, it's 3 words that I've heard before, not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a specific wellness trend.
Yeah, so I was sat for part of my wife's birthday. We went to something called the Lido, which I've learnt is now pronounced the Lido, which is this very kind of bougie sauna kind of swimming thing, which I was apprehensive of enjoying. And when I got there, I really, really loved it. I was like, this is just great. I mean, the fact that our mother and father-in-law had the kids for the 2 hours while we were there probably added to this. But it was really an enjoyable experience. And it was created in this way of people just enjoying themselves in the calm tranquility, but also in a way of like coming together and not just isolating yourself up a mountain or, dipping into the wild outdoors. And then I came across this concept preparing to this show that this is a bit of a movement and people are craving something real. So to quote this chap called Alex Feldman, who is the co-founder of a wellness club in New York City called Saint, he, in inverted commas, he said the world has become so digitized and screen obsessed that the most radical thing now is to actually feel something and to put your feet on real stone with your phone completely out of reach. And what better way to do it than with other people? And it really kind of got my cogs turning in terms of, yeah, that does sound great, but why does this sound so great? Why are we so disconnected from one another? The advent of the smartphone and now with AI, the paradox of these smartphones that were supposed to make us all so much more connected is having the complete opposite effect, isn't it? We're all very, very much disconnected, very much now focused in our phones and with AI and all of this digitization, like this chap said. And the idea that there's a huge market now of people just desperate to meet each other and do it in these social wellness spaces, I feel optimistic about, but also tinged with this really depressing undertone of how did we get here?
Deep. It went deep. I was thinking it's kind of like a backlash, isn't it, to exactly what you're saying. We've gone all personal, individualized tech, which we were talking about, and people using wearables and jotting it online so everyone else can see how much they've cycled or whatever. And this feels a bit more like a return to grassroots. I suppose people used to do aerobics classes. I suppose they still do, but aerobics classes together or football together and things like that. And this is just a really expensive way of doing that. So one thing I did think is that when you look into this, it's like a bit of a class divide. I get, but if it's getting people together and making them move more, relax, feel good, then that's great if that's what they want to spend the money on. And yes, people, I think there's a statistic, I don't know if it's true, about loneliness is as dangerous as smoking for your health. So I think anything we can do to get people to make healthy habits and do it with other people, because we know that's accountability, it's routine, it's more likely people are going to stick with it as well. And so I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great opportunity to plug a previous episode that we've done about loneliness and the dangers of loneliness, and I would recommend anyone wanting to check that out to have a listen, because I think that's a really valid point. And yeah, I feel a bit like you, Matt, that it feels a bit sad that it's got to this, but equally great, and you're right, you do kind of rebel against the norm, don't you? The way that a lot of people now are starting to get brick phones and non-smartphones. People want to listen to music on vinyl as opposed to Spotify or whatever it is. And you do get a kind of bit of a backlash about the norm. But yeah, look, I love the ideas of these. I mean, so social wellness trends, social wellness spaces, how are you scoring that out of 10?
I'm going 8, and I'm going to say I think it's important.
Sophie, what are your thoughts on this? How are you scoring this out of 10?
I mean, I'm going to say 10 out of 10. I can't see a downside. If people want to spend their money doing things they enjoy with people they can socialize with, then great. I'm all for it.
Fantastic.
Whether that's grassroots, park runs, or whether it's ice, sauna, treats, whatever. Do it. Good.
Excellent. Well, I will agree with everything you said, and I'll split the difference and say it's a 9 out of 10 for me. Now, I'm going to move us on to talk about something we've touched upon actually already, but something called functional drinks. Essentially, these are your drinks that you're seeing more and more, as we say, in your local supermarket, all over really, that rather than just seeing your Lilts and your Sprites and your Orangina or whatever, really showing our age there, I think, we're now seeing kind of probiotic beverages, plant-based drinks, cereal grain-based beverages, herbal infusions, what have you. And in particular, the one I want to talk about was fizzy protein drinks, and that was a concept I've never come across before. But essentially, these are in a very pretty can. They contain around about sort of 10 to 25 grams of protein. They are sugar-free. They're supposedly additive-free in a lot of cases, and they're being marketed not so much as a protein replacement. This is not something that you're going to necessarily want to use if you are working out, if you've done a heavy workout, or if you're taking your GLP-1s or whatever, but it's an alternative. So you go and have your lunch, and instead of picking up a Coke, you get one of these drinks. So kind of an interesting, I mean, we'll all have seen them, I'm sure. And actually, some of them, there's a kind of prebiotic drink called Living Things that I really like. And drink from time to time. And I think when you compare them to a lot of these traditional fizzy drinks, they are potentially healthier. I think we need to be a little bit careful about what they're promising. So they're certainly not going to provide you with all the protein that you need. They're not to be used as a substitute for a healthy diet. You've got the issues. It's a carbonated drink, so it's potentially bad for your teeth. There's going to be a lot of ultra-processed stuff there. It's not particularly regulated, is it? But yeah, probably better than your Coke or your Sprite or whatever it is.
I think protein is now kind of branded over everything, isn't it? Your yogurts to your your kind of little snacks that you get as part of the meal deal. Everything seems to be covered with high protein, and I feel like it was on the back of this movement of protein is good for us. It turns us into these kind of powerful athletic physiques that are so desirable, and it's almost like protein is your answer.
Even my 15-year-old daughter, she's obsessed. Every time I go to the supermarket, because she wants to be in the gym all the time, she's always like, "Get me some protein snacks, Mum." And I'm like, no. I used to work in advertising before I was a doctor, and it's literally just a way to put ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Greek yogurt, you can have. Nuts, you can have. Have a boiled egg as a snack if you want. Eat protein in your meals. And yes, protein is really important. You need to have adequate protein. And if you are hoping to build muscle, then yes, you may need more, but you can work that out. Older people, we know that you start to lose muscle after you're about 50, sarcopenia. So yeah, you need to make sure you're having adequate protein. But we don't all need to become suddenly protein obsessed. There's a lot about even women menopause, like, oh, you poor thing, you need loads more protein. No, you don't. You just need adequate protein. And you certainly don't need to buy ultra-processed nonsense that costs loads of money. So I'm not a big fan of this at all. If I was going to go get a meal deal, I'll drink a Diet Coke. I don't care. That's fine. I have an overall healthy diet. It's not going to kill me. And people just think that it's going to make them healthier. And then they maybe make bad choices otherwise. They might be like, oh, I've got that healthy drink, so therefore I can have a chocolate bar. It's that kind of misunderstanding of that health halo. So no, I'm not a big fan at all.
Yeah, fair. And I think actually it's interesting because whilst protein has been really fixated upon for the last few years, there has been a lot of talk about whether actually we've been moving away from that, and 2026 may be the year of fibre. So everybody's getting very excited about the fact that we need to eat more fibre, and that 96% of us in the UK are not hitting that required fibre intake. Yeah, exactly. So it's not the most glamorous thing, is it? You're not going to get kind of fizzy drinks that say, have all of the fibre that you require a day. But maybe that's the key. Maybe we should be thinking about that. But yeah, Matt, is your cupboard loaded up with these?
I haven't. No, sorry. No, I was thinking about what score I was going to get. No, I haven't got any functional fizzy protein drinks in my cupboard. No, but I was actually thinking I'm going to give this like a 3 or 4 out of 10, because I think the point that you made about a lot of the other crap that's on the shelf in the supermarket. There's this newsagent at the bottom of my road that was it was a carpet shop, and we got really excited when it was being sold and bought something else. We're like, oh great, it's going to turn into like a maybe a bakery or something, and then it's turned into a newsagent, and it literally all it sells is like brightly coloured packets of sweets and fizzy drinks. And I was thinking, is a functional fizzy protein drink, is that any better? And I thought probably is a bit better than maybe a Pepsi Max. But then actually hear you, Sophie, say about this notion of health halos and how I'm having a really good lunch today because I've had my fizzy protein shake. I think actually you're right. This is actually quite deceiving as well, isn't it? So I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 10. I don't know why I've given it a half, but a 2.5. Over to you.
So if you go on then, damn
I'm
this
one. I'm going to give
one.
it a 1 out of 10.
1. Oof. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit kinder and go for a 5 out of 10 on the basis that I think as long as you go into this with open eyes and not expecting miracles, they are probably better than a lot of the other drinks. Right, where are we going next?
I'm going to move us on because I think this is really interesting. We've done an episode previously on the gut microbiome and the science behind that with the excellent James Kinross. So go back and have a listen to that if you're interested. This was an interesting wellness trend that I found. This is about the oral microbiome and the relevance of what toothpaste you put in your mouth, for example, and the flora that inhabits your mouth. So Sophie, do you want to take the reins on this one?
Yeah. So I already knew a bit about this, but I did a bit more reading and I think it's really interesting. Yeah, obviously we're all obsessed now with gut microbiome, and actually things like the vaginal microbiome, there's a lot of chat about this, skin microbiome. So yeah, the oral microbiome, I think we now understand that not all bacteria is bad. So the mouthwash adverts that I remember from growing up, where they're like, mouth explodes and you destroys 100% of all bacteria. That's actually not a good idea because it's very important, just like your gut microbiome, that you have a lovely balance of all the different bugs in your mouth. And we're realizing how important it is for your overall health, not just your teeth and your gums. So there's this thing known as the oral gut-brain axis and the oral gut cardiometabolic axis. So not only could it just be important just in general, but there's really good evidence about how it could be important for your cardiovascular health. So some of the oral bacteria converts dietary nitrate from things you eat like leafy greens into nitric oxide, which can be really important for your blood vessel health and your blood pressure. And in fact, I heard one person talking about how it could be really important for men's erections. And I thought, well, that's one way to get men to clean their teeth. But there's also links with brain health. So they're saying that because chronic oral inflammation may have a link to dementia and Alzheimer's. At the moment, we haven't quite got enough evidence to make that kind of correlation versus causation link. But it seems biologically plausible because the mouth is obviously the entrance of all the bacteria into the body. So I am bang on the money with the science of the oral microbiome. I think it's so interesting, and I think we're going to keep on finding more and more about it. What I'm not on board with, I feel like I'm going to say the same thing again here, is people spending loads of money because you can buy all sorts of nonsense now. I call it nonsense. You can buy special microbiome toothpaste, sprays, lozenges, rinses, prebiotics, probiotics for your mouth, but there's not really any evidence this stuff makes a difference. What we do know makes a difference is the boring things, the cleaning your teeth twice a day, the flossing, the not smoking, not having too much sugar, and going for your regular dental checks. That stuff is going to make a difference. And if you keep on top of your oral health, you may well be doing yourself a massive favor in terms of your heart health and the rest of your health. So yeah, don't use the strong mouthwashes, or if you do, don't do it very often either. So I think really interesting, but you don't need to splash the cash.
I think the science behind the creation of important molecules by those bugs that live in your mouth is really interesting. It really kind of gets the imagination going. I have often thought, though, is this an area that is ripe for advancement? Is there space in the, say, for example, the toothpaste industry? I have used Colgate toothpaste my whole life, and I think most people I know use. I mean, there are other toothpaste alternatives out there, but there's a huge monopoly here. And is this right that we're putting Colgate in our mouth every day, or is there a delicate balance of the oral microbiome that is slightly poorly understood, and could the science go further? I'm massively hypothesizing there, and I would definitely encourage people to keep using Colgate toothpaste.
Part of these new oral wellness products, you can get toothpaste that are advertised as microbiome friendly, fluoride free but mineral rich, or detoxifying. So this idea that something that's like natural detoxifying and fluoride free is somehow going to be better for your oral microbiome, when actually we know fluoride is the most evidence-based, excellent way of preventing kind of tooth decay. So people are jumping on the marketing money bandwagon of it, but whether or not that matches with the science, I think for the moment, stick with your regular fluoride toothpaste.
Yeah, well said. We had the head of Bupa Dental on, didn't we? Annie came on the show, and she said, if you're doing a few things, just make sure that your toothpaste has a certain amount of fluoride in it. But yes, the advent of new fancy oral microbiome toothpaste that don't have that, it does ring alarm bells, doesn't it? Come on then, Mike, you go first. What's this? How relevant and important is this for 2026?
Well, I don't know. Kind of I'm a little bit confused about this one, because if you're asking me whether good dentition and good oral health, I would say, look, that's clearly a 10 out of 10. I think a better appreciation of the microbiome and the environment in the mouth is probably going to develop and will become a good thing. I mean, this plays back to what we were talking about with this individualized approach to healthcare. So I will settle on a 6 out of 10.
Very nice. Sophie?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to hear a lot more about the oral microbiome, and I think we're going to be sold a lot more wellness nonsense. So I'm going to give it 5.
Okay, I'm going to go with a very non-committal 5 as well, actually. I'm not informed enough on these products, and we'll keep using my Colgate toothpaste, but we'll keep an eye out on the science as well as it develops.
Right, Matt, now you've got your Colgate commission signed and sealed. Do you want to move us on to the next topic? You're going to talk about GLP-1s. We've talked about these till the cows come home, but they are all the rage. What do they look like in 2026 and beyond?
Before I get started, Sophie, what are your thoughts on these? In your general practice, are you seeing lots of patients asking for these or even on these?
Yeah, I mean, so much. And yes, I mean, I can't prescribe it for weight loss as a GP. So people are buying it privately, and family and friends. And yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty blooming marvelous. I mean, I have an interest in obesity medicine, and I think it's helping give us an appreciation of an understanding of obesity isn't just a case of eat less, move more, and it's a chronic condition. The downsides, obviously, is that if you do manage to get them on the NHS, I mean, congratulations, but then you only begin to give it for 1 or 2 years. And if you are paying for it privately, people just kind of assume they can do it for a bit, lose the weight, and then stop, and then the weight will come back on. So that's the downside. But I think it's really interesting, the science that's coming forward about how much they are helpful to your health beyond just the weight loss. Obviously, the weight loss itself comes with incredible health benefits for someone who is obese. But nowadays, you're seeing the celebrities using it. There's talk about microdosing. There's not good evidence to know about that, so we don't know. I do think overall they're probably very safe. I'm very excited by them, and I think there's so much science going on now because there's a lot of money to be made in it. So yeah, I'm excited for 2026.
Yes, I'm going to outline some of the developments in this area that I think are exciting. So in December of last year, the FDA in the States have approved an oral version of Wegovy. Now, this is manufactured by Novo Nordisk, and this is a daily version of the injectables. And I think this is going to break down a lot of barriers as well. What I've read about this, and just to make some of the people listening to this aware, this is not something that's available in the UK at the moment. This isn't something we can prescribe. I don't even think we can prescribe this privately at the moment. I don't think it's available in that respect either. But it's taken every day. It's taken a bit like thyroxine. You have to take it first thing in the morning, 45 minutes before anything else, with a glass of water. And I think this is going to be a huge progression with GLP-1 medication, because I think this decreases a lot of the hurdles that a lot of people might have in terms of injectables. The idea of a daily tablet seems a lot more accessible. And I'm aware that also the supply chain issues, the needles, the administration, etc., it's a lot simpler and is a lot more cost effective to make. So I think this is really, really, really exciting. There are some studies saying that the GI side effects with the oral tablets are potentially worse than when you're taking the injectables, and I know that there's a lot of patients that really struggle with that. Some of which I've had that literally can't even take the injectable form, even on the lower doses, because of the side effects being too much. So it sounds like it's not going to be for everyone. But yeah, again, just echoing your thoughts, Sophie, I'm really, really excited about this, and I think it's going to be an interesting year.
I was just going to caveat by just saying I was thinking about the fact that one thing that does worry me is the massive abundance on, for example, TikTok of fake GLP-1 stuff. And even like the new, is it retatrutide that's not out yet in the UK, that's like the 3-in-1, you can get versions of it on TikTok, and people just think that they're like, oh great, I can't get it from my doctor, but I can get it on TikTok, and who knows what you're getting. And so that does worry me. I feel like we need a lot more kind of regulation and awareness of taking kind of dodgy TikTok medication or online stuff.
Yeah, it's a really important point, isn't it? When something good comes along, it creates bad actors, people trying to copy it, and you've got to be careful and get this from a verified source.
Right, go on then. Colours to the mast. What's everyone going for?
I'll go first. I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10.
Sophie, are you similarly positive?
Yes, I am similarly positive. So yes, I'll go 9 too. Yeah.
I'll go 8. I think they are great for people who need them. Right, where are we going to now? We're going to talk about AI, and again, we're recapping a lot of these topics that we've discussed on the show before. But AI is one that pretty much as soon as you talk about it, you're out of date, because this is moving so fast. And particularly wanted to talk about the role of AI in preventative medicine, because I think that's where we're going to see a big explosion of people offering this in 2026 and beyond. Now, we've talked about Neko Health. Now, I know that is doing very well. They're now expanding to New York. But with this advent of AI and AI getting continually better, there's a lot of excitement about the opportunity of using this to prevent illness and to assess people's health and catch problems before they become an issue. So the two things I want to talk about specifically within that, we've talked about wearables before, and everybody is wearing a smartwatch of some sort, or a chest strap, or whatever it is. Now, some of you will be aware that ChatGPT Health is about to launch. The feeling is that this is going to try and provide you with a personalized approach to your health. So you can link your wearables or your Apple Health app or whatever it is to ChatGPT. They will use that data to provide you not only with generic advice, but also actual personal advice for your health, which I think sounds great in theory. I think anecdotally you can still accidentally or otherwise manipulate the AI and say, discount this reading, or don't worry about my age or my smoking and just give me advice. And you can play around with that. So, look, I don't have a huge issue with that personally. I don't know about you guys, but people Google their symptoms all the time. I think ChatGPT Health is likely to be just a step beyond that. I mean, there will be thousands of disclaimers saying that this is used to advise and to improve your access and to debunk that medical letter that you've received, and it shouldn't replace a doctor. But it's important that people understand that you shouldn't be just going to AI for health advice. It's an adjunct rather than a replacement.
After listening to your episode about, is it Neko? Is that what it's called? Neko Health? Yeah, well, I contacted you actually, didn't I? Because I was like, oh, but what I think is also interesting is about the negatives and the downsides. Because what I worry a lot about is any of these wearables actually is that they're very often anxiety producing. And it's this drive for some sort of human perfection that we'll never reach. And therefore you failed because you didn't fully optimize yourself. Oh gosh, you slept badly last night. Have a calm day today. Like, no, I can't. I've got 3 kids and a busy job. Go away. But in general as well, and when you have a scan, if you've got no symptoms and you're otherwise well and you go in for all these full body scanning, testing, everything else, it may pick up what we call incidentalomas. So things that were never going to bother you, never going to harm you anyway. And then all of a sudden, what you're going to deal with that? You've got the anxiety of that. You're going to ring your mum and tell her. You're going to have to get life insurance that affects that. You're going to have travel insurance that affects that. You're going to have further tests that might have side effects and risks associated with them. You're going to start on treatment that maybe you never needed. I am not a big fan of all this stuff. There's a reason we have really strict screening regulations and rules. And I am not a big fan of just willy-nilly testing everyone for everything. Like, good, be aware of symptoms. You got a funny mole, get it checked out. But I don't think you should just randomly go and get screened for everything. But I think just live as healthy as you can, be sensible, be balanced, and just take this. I think this is just an added layer of stress and anxiety and pressure. I'm not all for that. I'm all for living life and being kind of chill.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you in terms of the other bit of research I did around this was, there are going to be a lot of companies now that they're going to use AI to offer these whole body MRI scans for well people. And I think they're potentially very dangerous for exactly that reason. If they're not interpreted, if a patient is just given this data with some perhaps limited explanation, I think exactly that is going to cause anxiety, stress. It's going to put further pressure on a healthcare service where people are going to descend to their doctor with this scan and say, what about this, 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 and this? So I think that is very, very dangerous. I'm slightly more positive on on this move, I guess, a little bit more towards preventative health. And so if you're right, we can say to people, eat healthily, live healthily, but that's not cutting through in a lot of cases. And a lot of illness and a lot of issues that arise are not because people aren't living and eating healthily. It's potentially because they haven't got something picked up that could have been picked up earlier. So I share your concerns, but I'm a little bit more excited in this area, perhaps, if that's the right word.
I think you're right in terms of, you said at the top of the point about how this is moving so quickly that this conversation might be irrelevant in, say, 6 months' time. I also think this is so broad, isn't it? Like, we're talking about AI in healthcare and Neko health scans and how, they're trying to create a new modality for scanning people. And I think you're right to say that that's anxiety inducing and can make us focus on the wrong things in life, maybe. But I think it's, again, with you, Mike, I think I'm quite excited by some of this. And coming back to what you said about ChatGPT Health, this is something I haven't looked into a lot, but I've read a little bit about, and I've got huge concerns about it. But if it's done in the right way, this is interesting how us as GPs, and I'll give you a lived example. I had a patient this week who came in with a problem. We talked through the problem. It wasn't until the end of the consultation he says, you do know I don't have a spleen. And I said, my gosh, no, I didn't know that. I've never met this patient before. And then I went back on his electronic record, which was there in front of me, but in the confines of the 10 minutes, I didn't have time to scroll down back to 1972 when he had his spleen removed. And what ChatGPT Health is, in some ways, it's promoting at the moment is this idea that you upload all of your personal consultations, your blood work, all of the relevant health information, you upload it, and with blind faith and trust into this large language model, and then it's able to give you personalized advice when you have a problem in the future. Now, I dread to think the number of ways this can go wrong with hallucinations, etc., but there probably is some hybrid model where we say, well, actually, if I've got something that can maybe summarize a patient's notes or give me a slightly quick overview on who this person is so that I can understand them much better because of the 10-minute limitation that I have to get to know them. Combining that some way in our practice, I think there is a role here somewhere, but it's obviously fraught with complexity and pitfalls and traps everywhere. So I think I'm interested and excited, but also, yes, terrified as to where we're going.
Yeah, good summary. It's a little bit double-edged sword for me. I think I like the idea of using AI to optimize people's experience at the doctors, or making it easier for doctors to work. I don't love the idea of an unregulated situation where people can just get scans left, right and centre, because I think that's just a recipe for disaster. So I will settle on a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay. Sophie, where are you placing this?
Well, I'm a massive fan of AI, and obviously it's not going anywhere. We can run all we like, but it will be run faster than us. So I think my main actual concern is the lack of regulation. So it's tremendous, and it's a bit like Spider-Man, with that much power comes responsibility. And we haven't got that responsibility nailed down yet. So I'm going to say 6 out of 10.
Okay. I'm going to go big on this. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. I feel this is most important and relevant, whether we like it or not. I feel like my patients are running laps around me faster than I can keep up with it. And I think it's so broad, it's such a big topic, but I think this is really, really important. And I think we'll change a lot of things very quickly. So I'm actually going to go 10 out of 10. I feel we've got to keep an eye on this, see where it goes. Sophie, I'm going to move us on to what I think is also one of the most interesting wellness topics here, and I'll let you take centre stage on this. This is brain hacking.
Yeah, so this is a massive topic actually, and covers lots of different things. So brain hacking is kind of a broad umbrella term. So on the basic side of things, it's what we already know, like CBT, mindfulness, meditation, that can literally kind of change your brain. But then really what we're talking about now is the kind of more the health techie stuff. So the medical neuromodulation. Again, you did a podcast about TDCS. So yeah, I didn't know anything really about all this stuff. So I've looked into it, and about devices, so the non-invasive vagus nerve stimulation devices. And actually I'd kind of seen these on the periphery and didn't know much about them. So I was quite excited to look into it a bit more. And so that with the TDCS is really interesting actually. I was immediately put off because as soon as I started looking into it, then my social media feed became full of adverts where they promised to literally fix everything. I mean, if you've got a broken sink, it'll probably fix it. And there was a picture of an overweight AI woman who then was a thin woman. And I was like, what? They're promising that it's going to make you lose weight. So then I was immediately skeptical. Don't overpromise and underdeliver, people. But yes, essentially, there is some decent evidence that some of these things may help with stress, sleep, mood, focus. But most of the good evidence we have is in the medical versions, the ones that are implanted into your skin. So the ones you can buy over the counter that are pretty expensive, a lot of them, the evidence is a bit thin on the ground. The evidence I saw the most was for a brand, there are others available, but one called NeuroSim. So that is an auricular-vagal neuromodulation therapy. And it says it resets your healthy brain chemistry and strengthens the neuroplasticity by affecting your vagus nerve. So you wear it on your ear and it links to your tragus, the bit where you put your finger when you close your ear canal, and stimulates your vagus nerve, which is really important for activating part of your autonomic nervous system, which is things that you don't really think about, called your parasympathetic nervous system, to make you feel kind of calmer, to help lower your cortisol levels, because everyone's always obsessed about their chronic cortisol levels. So the idea is you can wear this and it will calm you down. I think there may be an element of it when you're wearing it for half an hour a day or whatever you're meant to do, and you're sat thinking about how calm you feel. Maybe that's why you feel better. But it's certainly interesting. We do know the vagus nerve is important and can help by even just washing your face in cold water or by doing deep breathing. That can also stimulate your vagus nerve and is free. So that's an option. But I think it's really interesting. People do want alternatives to help with their stress and mental health problems. I would say at the moment, don't try this if you've got real mental health problems, because there's not great evidence for that and you might be wasting time when you could be getting better help. But I'm certainly intrigued as to how much it may or may not help. But again, what I would say is if people are trying this as a cherry on top when everything else is already great, they're already eating well, sleeping well, moving, etc. Okay. But if the scaffolding isn't there and then you're hoping this is going to fix your problems, it won't.
I like the idea of the principle of building up your parasympathetic nervous system, and I think that can be very helpful. So the concept of it is good, as you say. How do you know with what you're buying online or whatever that's going to make a difference? I don't know. But again, you're right. This is a topic that I think we're going to see over and over again. This idea of trying to tap into something to to hack your brain to optimize things in some way. I was reading a little bit about something called memory gardening. I don't know if either of you are familiar with this. This is apparently a pre-sleep ritual where you do some light journaling and specific reflections designed to help the brain prune and consolidate memories during REM sleep. I mean, my pre-bed routine resembles a decent amount of self-recrimination and then kind of falling into a red wine-induced sleep before being woken up far too early. But I don't think that's quite memory gardening. But I think that's the kind of theme that we're going for, and I think we're going to see more and more of these, right?
Again, you see, memory gardening sounds hard work, whereas this sounds easier. People want the easy option.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Mike, that's not memory gardening, by the way. That's like memory steamroller. It's like turning the garden into a car park or something. Yeah, I think this is a broad topic again, isn't it? The idea that we can, as you say, take a quick fix to tune into a specific nerve that will calm us down. I think these are very, very, very intricate, balanced systems within our, like you said, our autonomic system and regulation that are much more finely tuned than I think we can override just with a simple device. On the flip side of this, though, we do have amazing medical advancements, don't we? We have deep brain stimulation for all sorts of very significant disease states that are very, very powerful and effective. And that feels like a technology that might get better. And we had an enlightening conversation with someone from Flow Neuroscience. It's probably about a year ago now, wasn't it? And some of their evidence was quite impressive. I've not used it myself. I know of people who have found that beneficial. So I'm going to keep an open mind to this, and I'm going to give it a 6.
I'm going to give it, in its current format, a 3. This could develop, and I think that the high end of this stuff is very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few years this becomes a massive part of health even, rather than just wellness.
Yeah, I think I would give it a 4, and I think I agree that we may see a lot more of it and the science might catch up a bit. But for now, I would say don't spend your money on it, do something else.
Brilliant. We've all been really disappointingly agreeable in terms of our rankings of everything.
I wanted to just ask if any of these you plan on using in your own life or recommending to friends.
I'm going to start flossing. I always think I should floss my teeth. I should definitely floss my teeth.
Yeah. Matt, are you going to suddenly start hacking your brain and memory gardening then? What are you excited about?
Do you know what? Just talking these through, I've definitely got I definitely get excited by these things, and I've definitely drawn in, and I'm a sucker for the marketing or the optimism that they're clearly trying to garner in grabbing people's attention. I'm suckered into all of this, but the impression I'm getting speaking to you, Sophie, and it's been great to have you on, is that you strike me as someone who's very sensible, and actually you've got the fundamentals right. And I get the impression that you come back to saying, well, actually, why are you doing that? You need to focus on the basics and eat better and sleep better, and maybe not obsess over these scans that are making you more anxious. And I think whilst I do get excited about a lot of these things, it's great having someone tell me that, because I think ultimately I don't do the basics well enough. I don't protect my sleep like I really should. And I stay up too late and don't eat well and sleep well. So I'm excited by a lot of these things. But I think if I was looking in the mirror and was being honest with myself, what's going to make things better for me and what do I need to tell patients more of, it is doing the basics right, which is really boring and unexciting given that we're looking at the wellness trends of 2026. But, maybe that is a message that we all need to keep hold of.
This is why I don't go viral. I'm always like, you can do that if you like. I would save our money and just do the boring
Sophie,
stuff.
You've come on beyond the limits. Your life will never be the same again, I'm
afraid.
It?
I've made it. Absolutely made it.
Yeah, look, I think very fair point from both of you. I mean, look, we started this podcast for one of the reasons for starting this was to interrogate the wellness industry and call it for what it is in a lot of situations. Now, there's a lot of nuance, and we say that every single episode, but there's a lot of stuff I think that will become maybe even part of everyone's day-to-day life in the future, some of which we may have touched upon today, but that everything needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, doesn't it? I think there may be some element of truth into what they're saying, but you need to be very careful about the marketing and about the granular detail.
And that not everything is harmless, when people often think it might be.
Very good point.
Sophie, where can those listening find out more about what you're doing?
I am across social media. My main thing is I kind of have a patient information YouTube channel, which is called Dr Sophie GP, where I cover topics that I speak to all my patients about every day. as a GP. And I'm on Instagram and TikTok. And I also have a separate channel, which is Dr. Sophie Lifestyle, which is where I talk about all the kind of wellness, beauty stuff that I just personally love and am interested in, and kind of debunk or tell people what I think.
Fantastic. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really great to peer into the future with you and hear your insights. Well done for everything you're doing. I think your channel's great, and I would urge people to check it out. Thank you for listening. If you want to buy us a coffee, we will put the link in the notes. Otherwise, I'll say it again: like, subscribe, do all of that stuff, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, Mike.
Bye.